special guest with us here tonight, and it's my pleasure to present to you Dr. Gregory Fenves, Dean of the Cox School of Engineering. He's going to present to you what's going on, the state of Chicago schools. So without further ado, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Well, as many of you know, I like to have an open forum with the SEC once a semester. Usually they've been near the beginning of the semester, but this has been such a hectic time, particularly with some of the issues going on with TPAC and CTPAC, the tuition setting. That we've already had a number of meetings, so I'll give a report on that also in this presentation. But as a result, that got pushed to the end, near the end of the semester. So there's just about 3 weeks of classes left. It goes by fast. And then we have engineering commencement on December 3rd. So who's anybody here going to be a commencement, graduating? Okay. Actually, we're going to talk about graduation. We need to get everybody at commencement at some point a little bit sooner. So I want to use this time to give you an update on some of the big issues at the university and especially the School of Engineering, particularly those issues that directly affect engineering students. So I have a few slides. I'll try not to go off for long so that we have questions and discussion. Although I know half the meeting I probably tend to go a little too long. But let's get started. Well, we've talked about budget issues and things like that. We'll talk a little bit about that in this presentation. But despite all the financial problems and issues, we have been organizing things so we can continue to hire faculty in the School of Engineering. And this year, this current year, we have 14 new faculty joining the school. Every department has 1 or 2 new faculty members. In fact, D&D has 3 new faculty growing besides our newest department. And so these are really outstanding individuals who are coming into the School of Engineering. Some are junior faculty, starting as assistant professors, and some are very well regarded, more senior faculty coming in at full professors. And so you'll start seeing them in your classes. More than half of them have started this fall, and the rest will be starting in the spring semester. 3 engineering faculty got the highest teaching award in the University of Texas system, the Regents Outstanding Teaching Award, Michael Engelhardt in Civil Architecture and Environmental Engineering, Rich Crawford and Michael Weber, both in Mechanical Engineering. So these are some really outstanding teachers. And the Regents Award, in addition to the Academy of Distinguished Teachers at the campus level, the UT Austin level, do recognize our outstanding teachers. I won't talk too much about some of the things that are going on in our undergraduate programs, but one of the exciting new courses this fall, I talked about it last spring when it had started, it was being planned, is One Semester Startup. This is a course that's being taught, led by a number of faculty, by Bob Metcalf, our new professor of innovation with faculty appointment at ECE, is leading this course along with a faculty member from Combs, a faculty member from computer science. And these are 76 students in the class that form 20 companies around technology, engineering, and computer science, and the business school students that want to learn how to do business with engineers and computer scientists. So it's really been an exciting course. I've gone to a couple of classes. November 17th, Michael Dell will be speaking at the class. It's one of the final sessions. And then December 1st is the demo day where the 20 teams will be presenting their company, their technology and business plan. And I think it's going to be open to all students. They're planning on having it at the north end zone, one of those nice rooms overlooking the field in the north end zone. So we'll need some more information on that. So it's really been an interesting experiment on a pretty revolutionary new engineering course. We talked in the spring, I believe, about all the some of the issues that higher education is facing nationally, but especially in the state of Texas. And there is now a joint committee of the House and the Senate chaired by Senator Zaffarini and Chairman Dan Branch. And these have been, you're all so busy with doing what you should be with your classes, but these are really interesting hearings, I think very educational hearings that are taking place at the Capitol related to the university and related to higher education. And the next one is coming up on November 18th. All of these hearings have been archived on the Texas Senate website. So if you're interested in politics at all or learning about the political process as it relates to higher education, it is worth looking at these. So what is the impact of all the questions and discussion plans for higher education? Well, it's hard to say, but I want to give you a little bit of information about what it means for your engineering programs. We do pay attention. We do look at the rankings as published by U.S. News and World Report. What that table shows is that our overall ranking of our undergraduate engineering program at Texas has been ranked 11, and that's continued through the past couple of years. And you can see 2008, 2009, 10, 11, the national rankings of our undergraduate engineering programs in about 7 or 8 of the programs that are ranked. So they don't rank all programs, but aerospace, biomedical, and so on are the programs they rank. Now these are done by surveys. There's no methodology involved in U.S. News World Report's ranking of undergraduate engineering programs except by surveys. So they'll send out surveys to faculty across the country, department chairs and deans, collect the data, and produce the rankings. And you can see up through 2011, most of our programs were in the top 10. Biomedical engineering, our newest program, has been rapidly going up in the rankings. And electrical engineering has been ranked 11. But most were ranked in the top 10 and several in the top 5. In April of this year, the surveys were done for the 2012 ranking. And I think about April, we had an SEC open forum, and that was sort of when there was a lot of publicity about higher education in Texas, a lot of publicity about the University of Texas and where we were going. That's when the surveys were conducted. And the results of those surveys, the new rankings for 2012, were released in September of this year, so just a couple months ago. And I was pretty shocked about an almost across the board drop in our rankings of our undergraduate programs. See, aerospace dropped 4 places. Biomedical engineering lost ground. Chemical engineering lost ground. Civil, and so on. And so this kind of across the board drop in perception about the quality of our engineering programs I found very disturbing. Nothing has changed in our engineering programs. Our classes in the fall, last spring, weren't any different than the classes that we taught the previous semester. I think it was that these surveys were taken at the peak of a lot of the publicity nationally about higher education in Texas. So it's something that we need to work on and pay attention. And one of the ways that is very important that we're working on and paying attention is that in August of this year, the chancellor of the UT system, Dr. Francisco Figueroa, presented a framework for the university, advancing excellence at the university. So it is very important that we start to pay attention to this, that we are all working together across the state in quality and excellence in higher education, especially at the University of Texas. And so that framework is under development, and at UT Austin, President Bill Powers has been very clear in what our goals here at UT are to be the best at teaching and research and providing the best education at a research university. Now, one of the things that President Powers has talked a lot about, and I'm sure you're all aware of it, it's been in the Texan and it's been in some of the other outlets, is one of the ways we need to improve our efficiency is to increase the time it takes, or decrease, I should say, the time it takes for students to receive a bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science degree. And we had some discussion about this, particularly as part of the CTDAC process. And President Powers has created a university-wide task force on graduation rates. They are it's a task force that consists of 7 faculty and 5 students. It's a fairly small, focused task force led by the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts, Randy Deal. And they're planning on coming out with preliminary recommendations of this task force on how to improve undergraduate graduation rate at UT. One of our engineering faculty, Bob Gilbert from Civil, is on that task force. Now, I think it's pretty important. This is some data that I've shown one of our earlier meetings related to CTBAC that shows the graduation rate at UT for engineering students. So what this shows is the graduation rates, percentage of students who graduate, I should say the percentage of students who enter engineering as a freshman and at what point they graduate, what percentage they graduate. So what this is saying is that 31% of the students who enter engineering as freshmen graduate in 4 years. 31%. That's a really high. 40% of the students who enter engineering as a freshman graduate from UT, but not with an engineering degree. So they start as engineers, decide to change majors for a variety of reasons, and change to another major outside of engineering, graduate from UT with a UT degree. You can see the numbers for students who enter engineering as a freshman. 54% graduate in 5 years. 73% graduate with a UT degree, not necessarily engineering. And similarly, it's about the same numbers for 6 years. So Texas as a state, the large universities, UT and Texas A&M, have relatively low graduation rates compared to other public universities in the United States. And so we need to work on this. We need to figure out why these rates are low, because it is a cost to you and your families. It's more expensive to go to school for 6 years than it is 4 years. And particularly for engineers, where there's a good job market, a very good job market, there's an opportunity cost of salary that's not earned while you're still in school.
I was wondering if this survey included students that go on co-op as a part of their...
Yeah, so there are reasons that it does a student to take longer than 4 years, such as co-ops and such as internships. So this includes everybody. We have to sort out the data a little bit more finely to deal with those issues. And probably a better measure is number of semesters in residency. So a co-op is not a semester in residency. The data systems here need some work so that we can answer this question. But the number of students who are in co-op is relatively small, so the overall trends aren't going to substantially change even if we subtract out co-op students. So think about your questions and discussion and what your thoughts on this, because I do want to talk about it after I'm done with the slides. So there's a lot of discussion going on across the university about tuition increases. Every 2 years, the university goes through a tuition setting process. This is done through TPAC, the Tuition Policy Advisory Committee, that involves students, administrators, and faculty. Roberto, you're on TPAC or you report to TPAC, or there's some relationship with TPAC. We'll talk about TPAC in a moment. But there's going to be the next public forum. They've held one so far. Is that right? One so far. The next one will be on November 16th at 4 o'clock. So everybody is invited To go to that, I assume they're going to make some kind of presentation, and there'll be a discussion. Now, our input into this, our input to this process for tuition setting over the next 2-year cycle was the College Tuition Budget Advisory Council for Engineering. Roberto designated that as president of SEC. There were 10 students on that, is that right? 14 students that were on the CTBAC committee, and so we started working really over the late summer, August, and we worked pretty quickly. I think we were one of the first, every college has a college committee, and I believe we were one of the first to get, you were one of the first to get your report in, and our proposals and programs. So leave it to engineers to do it the right way. So CTBAC has forwarded into the university tuition setting process a proposal, and it's a pretty ambitious proposal, but it has a clear goal, and the clear goal is that for the number of students that we have, number of undergraduate students, we don't have enough faculty. Hence, we're not getting classes being filled, and so on. What this shows is the top 10 schools of engineering now ranked by graduate rankings. So previously we looked at the undergraduate rankings. Cockrell School overall is ranked number 11 undergraduate, and it's ranked number 8 graduate. And so you can see our peer schools, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, Georgia Tech, and so on. The number of faculty, I hope those slides are readable in the back with this light. And the undergraduate, the ratio of undergraduate students to number of faculty. And you can see UT has the highest ratio of any top 10 school of engineering. Now, this is not news. This has been part of solving this, reducing that ratio, not by decreasing the number of students, but by increasing the number of faculty, has been the goal of our plans now for several years. But we need resources to be able to hire the faculty. So that was the discussion that we had with the engineering CTBAC. And so we went through with CTBAC the revenue that's needed to address this. So we might as well just put it all up here. We had a whole separate discussion about this engineering forum. So the priorities for what we need to do to move forward to continue to build excellence and quality in the School of Engineering is we need more TAs and lecturers, particularly TAs. So our estimate is $1.2 million a year. We need to continue to increase the number of faculty. That's $2.8 million, including startup and all the costs of hiring faculty. We would like to develop a new Center for Engineering Education that's around the You Teach Engineering program, and bringing that and integrating that more into the College of Engineering. And we are in a very competitive marketplace with our faculty, so continuing to provide and work on competitive faculty salaries is very important. So that's a total new revenue that we need of $6.6 million a year. And so what are the sources of revenue? Well, there are really only 3 categories. Number 1 is the state, general revenue appropriation, which comes from taxes. You know, if you follow the news of the last legislature where there was a $20 billion gap between revenue and expenses, and as a result, the budget to the appropriations to the universities were cut by $92 million or something like that for the biennium, $46 million a year. Most likely, general revenue appropriation from the state to the universities at best going to remain flat and is likely to continue to decline. UT has the reputation and excellence that it does have in many ways because of the very generous philanthropy that we've had by donors for at least the last 30 years at the university. So endowments allow us to hire faculty, to provide fellowships, to provide scholarships. Some of you might be, for example, have Cockrell scholarships. That's an example of the philanthropy. We are working with philanthropy now for our new building. I'll mention a little bit about that. So we do have very generous donors, but those are the kind of things philanthropists like to donate money for. I have a little bit of experience now doing this and telling a donor, well, the state's cut our funding. Can you write a check to help move us along? Usually doesn't go very well. So philanthropy is not a source for backfilling reductions in state appropriations. And so unfortunately, the really only other source is through tuition. UT tuition, I don't have the data here, is still slightly below the national median for in-state tuition. It's actually quite a bit below our peer schools of engineering, those other public schools that I had the slide before. And so we prepared a proposal for a tuition increase to CTDAC, which was for next year to increase the tuition $250 a semester for 2012-13, and then the following year an additional $250 a semester. So this is about a 5% increase a year for 2 years, and that will roughly provide the revenue. And this would only apply to the long semesters, right, not to the summer, so there would be no tuition increase in the summer. So that was the process we went through in CTBAC. The committee approved it, and it's now at the university level in looking at consideration. I have no idea what's happening with it. I guess we'll find out sometime November 16th at the forum. So the other big thing we have been working on is moving ahead with the Engineering Education Research Center. This will replace the E&S building. I've talked about this a number of times with the SEC. We are now about 50% through the design. We have a great architectural team, and it's going to be a fabulous facility, very large, 420,000 square feet. It will be the new home for ECE. It will be a very student-oriented building. In fact, about a third of this building is going to be new types of classrooms, teaching laboratories, student offices for student organizations, all our student affairs office, career center will all be located as a center for engineering in this building. And then for our research enterprise, we'll have urgently needed laboratory space for our research. And so we are well into design. The issue has always been how to pay for a $290 million building, a big building. Well, one of the conclusions of CTBAC, which was never the plan, we never planned tuition to go pay for the building, but we made that clear as part of the tuition process. So where's the $290 million going to come from? I won't go through all the details, but with the board, very important decision by the chairman of the Board of Regents, Gene Powell, and the Board of Regents, the Chancellor's support. In the August meeting of the board, they approved a significant amount of funding through the TUF funds. And President Powers has been behind this project from the beginning. He'll be putting university funds in. And so, in a very simple way, we have $190 million for this project from university sources, which was our plan from the beginning. And the other $100 million comes from our generous philanthropy, generous donors. So I've been spending a lot of time working on commitments for this $100 million of philanthropy. And I'll tell you about the schedule in just a moment. But one of the main, one of the main and critical aspects of this building will be new types of teaching laboratories. We are very much interested in having more hands-on project-based courses. I think that's a key to retention in engineering. I think that's the exciting part of engineering, and I would like to see our degree programs, our departments, have a substantive design project-type course every year of the engineering curriculum. But to be able to do that, we need the space, we need the project laboratory space to be able to do it. We absolutely do not have it. This is a major change in engineering education. And our facilities, some that are 50 years old, were just never designed for this kind of engineering education. And so the support of the Board of Regents was absolutely critical, and President Howard. And so as a result of those decisions, we have a schedule now. We have a schedule for this. And I hope everybody here is going to be graduated by 2016. Right? Okay. So you're going to come back as alumni for the celebration when we open this building in the fall of 2016. So backing that up, I need to raise, my job is to raise $100 million of philanthropy, or work with our donors in that. I would like to go to the Board of Regents in August of next year for final approval, meaning we're all done with the design. We know what we're going to do, where ECE department is going to go after we tear down, before we tear down and then we have the $290 million funding in place, the $190 from university sources and the $100 from sources. And so once we have Board of Regents final approval, beginning in the end of 2012, we'll first move out the engineering library to PCL temporarily. We're going to need that space for teaching laboratory, ECE laboratory, teaching laboratories, and then prepare that so that we can move ENS, empty ENS out in summer of 2013. We have a plan now that's pretty far along in keeping most of all the instructional components here on the campus. They'll be a look, they won't be right in this building or adjacent buildings immediately, but we're working on keeping the classrooms and the teaching laboratories on campus. Of course, quite a bit will be here on the first floor of ENS. And then tearing down ENS in a building this large will take about 3 years to build. So we will be anticipating completing the summer of 2016 and opening for the fall semester. So it's a very big project. It will change the face of engineering, Cochran School of Engineering, and this building will be the third landmark at UT when it's done. After the tower, after the football stadium, the engineering center will be the third landmark. Because of the size, its siting, it's opening up to Waller Creek and the open space, and its design, it will really be a landmark at UT. So that was my presentation. So that's not too bad, half an hour. That's actually better than earlier meetings. But I do want to put one plug in. It's really embarrassing. I only have 145 followers on Twitter. So if you could all please, if you follow, if you use Twitter, and actually I love Twitter. I get news faster on Twitter than almost any other source. And so I'm working on my voice for the Cochran School. It's just at Greg Fenves. So when I log into my email, I want to see 50 people signed up to follow me on Twitter. There are actually a couple doing them right now. And any feedback of what you want to hear from me through Twitter, and I can work on my Cochran School of Engineering voice on Twitter. Okay, so that's it, and be glad to answer questions and have discussion. Yes?
Regards to graduation rate, how do you feel about increasing within hours as changed?
So we're doing a lot of statistics, and the average number of units, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, we're going to have more information about this, but these are rough numbers. So on average, engineering students take a little over 13 units a semester. Can't graduate in a 128-unit program taking 13 units a semester. Most of the programs to make normal progress are 15, 16, there may be a few 17-hour unit semesters. So because for a variety of reasons, and maybe you can help me understand that, a lot of students are taking 12 units. And maybe the structural flat rate pay tuition, and to take 12 units, be a full-time student. But clearly progress, you cannot make normal progress at 12, 13, or even 14 units. So that is likely to be one of the recommendations from the task force is more requirements to make normal progress to a degree. The other, let me say one other thing, and then I really want to hear from you. The other thing our data shows us is that students are graduating with a lot more than 128 units. Something maybe Roberto and some others remember, something like a quarter of the students graduate with more than 170 units. Now that includes AP, it includes summer, junior community college transfer credits, but even if we just look at in-residence units taken at UT Austin, we have a substantial number of students that graduated with more than 140 units taken at UT Austin. The students are taking a lot more units than are needed for the degree, meaning obviously taking courses that don't count towards the degree. So those are two issues that I think lead to a relatively low graduation rate. So I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are on number of units for progress of the degree and number of total units for graduation.
I personally think it's a great idea. I think that minimum 12 hours promotes procrastination. And I think Berkeley doesn't too, so I would tell you about that. Their graduation rate is also 7%.
Berkeley doesn't. Berkeley, I came from Berkeley, so Berkeley, you've got to graduate in 8 semesters. You could possibly get most students could get a petition for a 9th semester. We don't at Berkeley, if a student doesn't graduate 9 semesters, they're toast. So that's a real problem. And so I didn't quite get your point. I think that Berkeley's the same as UT.
I thought Berkeley does that. Maybe it was
Does what?
minimum requirement.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Yeah, so yeah, it's not only a minimum requirement. A student at Berkeley every semester when they register has to show how they're going to graduate at 8 semesters or at 9 semesters. Now, for that to work, we need to do things too. We need to make sure that the courses are available for normal progress. There was an article in the paper today about required courses not being available. So we've got to solve that problem and make sure we identify barriers to normal progress and make sure they're solved. So it's not the system that's preventing normal progress. So, yes.
Yeah, I think part of it, in terms of people graduating with more credits than is necessary, is there's a lot of different things you can take classes in at UT, and there's things like business foundations and other stuff like that that I think are definitely extremely valuable to any engineering student or any student in general. And I think that just because some people might see that as a waste, I don't think that's a waste in terms of a way to spend extra credit on just necessary, over the necessary for an engineering degree.
So I'd like to get back to that point in a moment, but I want to hear from others.
So perhaps enabling students to test out more basic classes like M1, M2, physics 1, physics 2. We're making those options more, visible. So maybe if there's a clef exam or something offered at the university for voting one. So those sorts of things. Basically some implications, I guess. Get those out of the way and lighten them up on the other semesters.
Yes.
A lot of the basic classes sometimes discourage kids from continuing on even though they don't live in their major. Like physics, we have a lot of kids and this semester. But I think that a lot of those basic classes do sometimes discourage kids from going on to their junior and senior year. Just because there are a lot of rehab classes. And I think, opening opportunities and encouraging kids to get a lot of the kids done while they're in high school and keep training out and help a lot. So a lot of kids only take 14 hours because in controlling specifically we're supposed to take 17 hours a semester, but a lot of us take 8 out of 3-hour class, we only have to take 14.
Right, that's fine. Yeah, and that's an advantage, maybe, is that we can reduce.
It helps a lot to not have to worry about who studies now is going to be scary in engineering. So I think that maybe encouraging AP and somehow getting a lot of things put out of the way would help in 4-year election.
Yeah, I want to get back to that basic math and science also. Yeah.
What possible you is the standard score that he has not taken class, you really get credit from a score because only a lot of classes you require like easy project at 5 and a lot of big class, going on to the boards, so it's get credit that you deserve. So it's really more so that they have to.
Another thing that might be halting graduation is, again, the inability to get into those classes and register. So perhaps to make the registration process easier, you can see what classes it needed to sign up for and then base the class schedule and the availability of classes off of the number of students that you get.
You're right. We need, as I say, we need to make sure we don't have barriers to normal progress. And so we've got some work to do identifying, predicting the barriers. It's sort of like it's a supply chain problem, actually. So we have a certain number of seats, so we have to make sure the supply is there. Yes. Pardon?
Switching majors, like starting off with civil and transferring to mechanical. So perhaps the best way for that would be a class that like overviews. I know Berkeley they have a class with the overview.
Yeah, don't they have like some sort of like you're in general engineering for the first year and then you choose which specialty?
So this is a great discussion, and I'm probably going to lose track of all the things I've said I'm going to follow up on. But that's one of them too. So I want to make a few comments, but I want to hear from you all first.
All right. Well, I guess first speaking to graduating in 4.5 years. I mean, a lot of us do co-ops and things like that, and that kind of pushes us back a couple extra semesters, double majors, or maybe both. Another aspect of this is the high school system in the state of Texas is what, the 49 out of 50 states? Well, pretty bad. And I don't know what it is in California and the type of student that Berkeley attracts, but we are required to admit a certain number of students from each high school. And that kind of limits, I mean, I know Michigan is what, 30% out of state. They attract extraordinarily talented people from
Some
out
of
of
those
state.
schools are moving 40% out of state.
Well, there you go. And I think that in itself kind of hurts our graduation rate. I mean, people just aren't ready. And so we're UT. Maybe we need to find a solution that's good for us.
No, that's a good point too. Yes.
This isn't just an engineering thing, but just like a university-wide thing. Is like maybe if they could accept more of like the College Board CLEP tests, because there's like 33 different CLEP tests, but UT only accepts about 8 of them for credit, I think. So I know.
I'm going to display a little ignorance. What is a CLEP test?
It's basically like you can study for like a test like on your own, and then you basically just take a proficiency test, and it costs like $50, and you get like credit for an entire class.
Okay, yes.
One of the students earlier talked about not being able to register for classes.
Sorry.
One of the students earlier talked about not being able to register
Yes.
for classes. And like following on that, one of my professors told me that like for her class there's like 45 people that signed up and it closed because there weren't enough TAs, so that more people didn't sign up for that class. And so once they have approval for more TAs, we can maybe have 5 students or something. So TAs will play an important role.
So that's certainly something we have to do. We've got to make sure we've got the right supply of instructors, PAs, and funding for it. Yes, that.
This is going back on the UPNS building. Is there also a new building for the aerospace department? We have been hearing some things about that. Is there going to be a new WRW?
And so we have done a comprehensive master plan for facilities in engineering. That's how we got started. So looking ahead in a 15-year time frame, what kind of facilities we're going to need. And so there were, now I forget the, 4 new buildings, and then renovation and replacement of E&S, Woolrich, and then 2 additional buildings, and then renovation of ECJ, ETC, and CTE. So that was part of our master plan, and it had a phasing over a 15-year period. The ERC was the first project of those. And so, ultimately, we needed, our plan over 15 years is to add or replace yearly, I forget the exact number, but yearly 600,000 or 700,000 total square feet of space. So I need to get this one done first before working on the next one. Yeah.
So going off of what you said about getting more TAs, I think it's also important to make sure that the quality of the TAs are kept intact. Because a lot of professors will hire TAs from their own research team who don't necessarily speak English or are necessarily competent in class. So if we could create some sort of standard that the professors are forced to follow in order to hire these TAs, it would make the education experience better.
I think I've heard that one. You brought up really all the relevant issues that I believe we're facing in relation to graduation. So let me just speak to a couple. I don't have the answers. We are just starting to talk about it. You all realize what the issues are. So one is the admissions, the top 10% law as modified. We are working in an admission system that does mean the university does admit students, and for lots of good reasons, admits a variety of students, variety of backgrounds, diverse backgrounds across the state of Texas, but they're clearly preparation issues. And this is, as I understand it, has been true even before the top 10%. So it's probably more the characteristic of the secondary education system as it relates to the university. So that certainly is a given that we must work with, and we continue to work. Somebody talked about the basic math and science courses. That's a very important issue. You probably don't follow the New York Times. You're busy doing lots of things related to your education at school. But there was an article in the New York Times late last week, I think it was either Thursday or Friday's paper, exactly on this issue. About nationally, 40% of students who start in science or engineering, broad science and engineering, leave science and engineering as a major because of the introductory courses. And that's a big problem. It is a national problem. The U.S. needs more engineers and needs more scientists, more students with a STEM background, science, technology, engineering, and math. And if our education system is turning off 40% of them, that is something we need to look at. Now, UT, College of Natural Sciences, is working on a very interesting project called the Course Transformation Project, which is looking at using technology, online hybrid methods, not online degrees, but online courses, but online hybrid methods that have been pioneered at Harvard and Carnegie Mellon University, in scaling them up to large classes and having introductory courses. I think they're looking at a math course. I don't know which courses exactly, but a math course, I believe chemistry and biology. And so we certainly need to improve the instruction at the introductory math and science courses. It's just important for not just students staying interested in engineering and science, but also for education, because math and science is important to be an engineer. You do use differential equations when you're an engineer. I even use differential equations when I'm a dean. So those things are important. Let's see, I have forgotten some of the issues that came up. What did I say I come back to here?
I was talking about there being other courses and stuff talking outside.
Okay, yeah, that's very cool. So when you're at a big university like UT, there's a wealth of educational opportunities. You mentioned business foundations. Some students like language. They want to take Spanish, or Italian, or Japanese, and you have opportunities to take those courses. There's a problem with that, though. And you're not going to like this, but here's the problem. That once you're at UT and you're availing yourself of all these tremendous educational opportunities, that means two things. Number one, when you don't graduate, that means there's one other student you can't admit to UT, because we are at a fixed number of students. You can't increase beyond our current number. And so as a state university, the more students are able to graduate on time, the more students over time can have access to UT education. And the second is back to really the economics and the tuition argument that our tuition is, well, the cost of education is heavily covered by the state of Texas through the taxpayers, general revenue appropriation. And so students that take more units than their degree, meaning that's a pretty heavily subsidized education that somebody else is paying for, the taxpayers across the state. And so that's the kind of questions that we're being asked as a university to be accountable, is how is taxpayer money being used efficiently? And so there certainly is a trade-off of access and ability to take a lot of different courses, majors, double majors, change majors as a UT student that somebody's paying for. And that's really where a lot of these questions are coming. And we as a state and we as a university are going to have to figure out where is that balance between providing a cost-effective education, but also doing efficiently and providing as much access to as many students as possible. And that's a very tough issue at this point. Yes.
On the other hand, I think it's important to allow people the opportunity to broaden their horizons and see the bigger picture. I mean, engineering isn't just about solving equations or coding in a computer. It's also about talking with people and collaborating with others to solve problems. And those are the kinds of skills that you don't always learn in a math class or a programming class. Those are the kinds of things that you might learn in an interpersonal communication class or perhaps a music class when you have to work on a group project. So I feel like it's important to offer those classes to the engineering students.
And so one of the things that we need to look at, the faculty and leadership in the School of Engineering, is how much of those opportunities can we provide within the engineering, within the 128 units? And so how should we have more flexibility within the degree program so that students have an opportunity to have some choice, some electives for those kinds of things, and of course still meet the goals of an engineering education and our accreditation requirements. So that is something we need to look at.
So what sort of disincentives would you minimize for keeping people from focusing on these 5 tuition?
Yeah. So really, what incentives are there for graduating disincentives? So I don't have any particular ideas. If we look at other universities, what other universities have done, and I'm not advocating this that UT should do it. Some of this is I can even have questions about whether they're the right things to do. But a number of universities have a guarantee to freshmen and their parents a maximum tuition over 4 years. after the 4th year, 8th semester, depends how you count it, the tuition goes up. Okay, so there's an economic incentive to graduate in 4 years before the tuition goes up. In other words, you get the tuition break, students have a tuition break for 4 years, after that they lose. So that's one mechanism. I understand the task committee, the UT task committee has talked about, I don't even know if they'll consider it or recommend it, a tuition structure that 15 units costs less than 12 units. So an inverted flat rate tuition. Doesn't sound right. Our current tuition structure is the tuition goes up with the number of units, it took 12 and it's flat. So have a tuition structure where the tuition goes up to 12 units and then drops down to 16 units. That seems like a kind of a weird thing to do and easy to gain system. So I'm not sure how practical it turns out the state of Texas has what's known as a slacker, what they call a slacker law. That students, after they have had 100, now again, I'm not clear on the exact details, have had 170 units tuition goes up. And as far as anybody knows, that's never been used at UT. But 170 units is a lot more than the units it takes for any of our degree programs. So that's not a so those are three things that I've heard of.
What happens if you put 2 degree programs together? Let's say you're getting a double major, right? I want to do an engineering major and a business major. And I think the aerospace engineering major is 128, and a business major would be, I don't know how many more. I mean, what happens if it does go over?
Well, again, I'm not the sage on what all the answers are. That certainly is a question. I believe it's been talked about at the University Task Committee that perhaps tuition on a second major is a higher rate than the tuition for the first major. So there's an additional cost for a double major.
I guess at what point is the value of broadening your education, and that determining that versus cost, part of the whole thing is you get, like you were saying, you get a greater value for your education coming here.
That's absolutely the fundamental question that we're going to have to, as a university, address. And it's like almost anything that you're going to encounter in your career, it's a question of who benefits and who pays for an opportunity. And I don't have the answer for that. And that's certainly fundamental.
I just had a quick question in terms of if you were going to raise the tuition rate after 4 years, what would you do with, say, the co-op student? Would you just count the years by semesters?
Yeah, so it would have to have some system, semesters and resident, something like that. And clearly there are programs that are very valuable. We have co-op is a tremendous program. There shouldn't be a penalty for students in co-op.
Would you also, but in terms of the credit hours, would you also penalize the students who had, say, left out of hours, got credit for that, who have taken AP classes, who are taking summer classes out of residence, so that they can take other classes?
No, I mean, if I were making all decisions, I would incentivize students to do that, because that certainly allows the students to have more educational benefit at AUT. So I agree. So these are all the kind of issues that you can address. But the fundamental philosophical, I should say, policy issue is what is this trade-off between educational opportunity, very important, and who pays for the education. That's really what the fundamental policy issue is. Yes.
So instead of you had the graph that students go to 6 years for graduating, and then you want to take that back down to 4 years, right? So you could have something like this in that Berkeley program. You have essentially, you have like a max of 9 semesters, and then you kind of push it up. Instead of 9, it's like 10. You have like a good year for the students to explore
Okay, well, this has been very, very helpful, very timely on a critical issue for the university, so I really appreciate this. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter. All right, thanks, everybody.